Do you find that you're always looking around for where the toilet is? Or perhaps you need to rush when you get the urge to go? Do you notice that you get a sudden urge when you put your keys in the front door? If you have started noticing any of these symptoms, you may be experiencing an irritable bladder. And this might include the following. Urinary frequency. This is the need to go and pass urine more often than is normal. And there can be a variety of reasons for this. For example, it might be your bladder is smaller and you have less capacity. It could be due to the fact your bladder doesn't like to hold urine, or it might be that your bladder's got used to bad habits such as going all the time or going just in case. Urinary urgency is a sudden, strong desire to pass urine that is difficult to control or to ignore. And urgency urinary incontinence is the loss of urine that is associated with a very sudden, strong desire to pass urine. If you are experiencing any of these symptoms at all, you will most likely really benefit from following the bladder retraining that we're about to talk about. So bladder retraining is in fact retraining your behaviour. It involves understanding how and why your bladder works normally, as well as making sure we respond appropriately to the messages that the bladder is sending to the brain. It's a little bit like training a naughty toddler. And we know it will work, but it will take some time, usually about 6 weeks. It won't be easy, but we know at the end of it, for most people, it is highly successful. Let's remind ourselves of what is normal. The bladder acts as a storage organ by relaxing its muscular walls and allowing urine to fill it. The average bladder can hold approximately 450 to 600 mils of urine. The average adult will need to empty their bladder every 3 to 4 hours, which is between 5 to 7 times a day. Its main job is to hold urine, and it is happiest when it stores appropriately. The inside of our bladder cannot detect the presence of urine. As the bladder fills and starts to stretch, a message is sent up to the brain via our spinal cord. Think of this a little like an office. Our brains act a little bit like a boardroom. A meeting is always going on. A messenger knocks on the door and announces that the bladder is filling up. The first time this happens, the boardroom send the messenger away, back to the bladder, with a message to keep holding. The message is not that important, and it serves only as a warning. The feeling of urge will go away. This is known as first urge and usually occurs when the bladder is half full, which is approximately 250 mils. This is equivalent to a large glass of wine. At this stage, it is normal and healthy to continue holding. This process is known as deferment. The bladder will continue to fill with urine, which is being constantly produced as the kidneys filter our blood. As the bladder becomes fuller and stretches further, a second stronger message is sent to the brain. At this point, unless your brain is very distracted doing something else, you will become aware of the urge. It is at this point that our brain makes a conscious decision of when to pass urine. This is when the boardroom take notice of the messenger. It might be that you are shopping and you plan to pass urine when you stop for a coffee, or if you have a natural break between jobs. However, it is important to note that this is a planned activity. Once you are ready, the brain sends messages to both the pelvic floor muscles to relax, as well as to the bladder to contract and empty, and you will pass urine. The storage process then begins again. In this situation, your bladder does what the brain tells it, and there is no sense of urgency or needing to rush. If you ignore this second urge, as your bladder continues to fill, stronger messages will be sent to your brain until it becomes overwhelmed. Ignoring them further will cause discomfort. It's not good for you to overstretch your bladder, as this can cause microscopic damage to the bladder. Long term, this can be a cause of urgency in itself. Ideally, we will empty our bladders in response to our second urge message. So yes, there is lots that you can do to retrain your bladder. Research indicates that many people will benefit from following bladder retraining for 6 weeks. Firstly, however, follow the guide to healthy bladder and bowel habits that's on our other video clip. These tips will really help to calm your bladder down, to make the rest of the bladder retraining much easier for you to do. So in order to retrain your bladder, you will need to learn to ignore these very strong urges that you're getting. Instead of rushing to find a toilet, you'll need to put your energy into holding on and into deferring instead. There are several different techniques that you can use to help you do this. They all work in slightly different ways to trick your brain into working automatically again. Try them all and see which one is most helpful for you. Squeeze your pelvic floor muscles for a good 10 to 20 seconds until the urge goes away. Sitting on a hard surface or crossing your legs can help to activate this support. When your pelvic floor muscles contract, your bladder receives a message to relax and continue storing. Distract yourself. Do something mentally challenging. For example, counting backwards from 100 in threes, or spelling your name backwards, or trying to recall your to-do list. Anything will do, as long as it is mentally challenging. This will trick your brain away from the focus on needing to pass urine. Finally, try using a relaxation technique. When you are experiencing urgency, your brain is completely overwhelmed with the need to pass urine. It starts to release stress hormones. These in turn can cause your symptoms to become even worse. Try to breathe in for the count of 2 and out for the count of 3. Spend a minute focusing on this until that strong urge passes. Once your urge has passed, you can decide to do one of two things. If you think your bladder is full and needs emptying, calmly take yourself to the toilet to pass urine. If you get further urgency as you are walking to the toilet, or even as you are closing the door or pulling down your underwear, stop, defer, and wait for the strong urge to pass again. It is essential that you remain calm, that you don't panic, and that you don't rush. Eventually, your bladder will learn to listen to what you are telling it to do, and you will find your urgency improves and comes under your control. If, however, once you have deferred, you do not need to pass urine, for example, this has been a first urge, then continue with whatever you were doing previously. It can be hard to work out which messages are genuine and which are not. Measuring how much urine you pass over the course of 3 days can help you work out how much your bladder is holding. You should try this bladder retraining for 6 weeks, as well as performing regular pelvic floor muscle strengthening exercises and following the healthy bladder and bowel tips. If your symptoms do not resolve, you may benefit from further assessment and treatment from pelvic health physiotherapy. Here, we can assess and treat you for your individual needs.